lectures too. Like when I did this biblical series, because that was another thing that was so strange, Joe. It's like, imagine I walked into a venture capitalist organization. I said, look, I want you guys to bankroll me. I'm going to do 15 lectures on the Old Testament, and I'm going to try to attract young men. I'm going to rent a theater. Like, they just laughed me out of there. See, can you imagine anything less saleable than that? So, but I did that. I went ahead with it. I rented the theater, and then I walked through these stories, and I was learning a lot because, like, I knew the first stories in Genesis up to the flood. I knew them pretty well. I kind of understood what they meant. But then all the stories from Abraham onward, I had read them, but I hadn't done a detailed, in-depth analysis. And so I was learning a tremendous amount walking through those stories. And they had a big, they've had a big impact, man. And so I'm going to do Exodus soon because I want to do that. But it's just another example of how surreal things have become. But also the utility of a good conversation. Because like when I'm up on the podium, say, lecturing, I'm not exactly lecturing. I'm trying to figure something out and sharing that process with the audience.
Which is so different than what is going on in universities that is freaking everybody out. What's going on is this indoctrination into this group think.
Yeah, it's like, here's what's right, memorize it.
Right.
It's like my lectures are more like, well, I don't know what's right. Like, here's some things I know, and they seem to be working, and here's how I used those tools to dig at this story, and here's what it might mean, and this is what I got from it. And
here's some universal truths about human beings.
That seem to be, and then I try to explore that. It's like, well, should we believe this? Should we, like when Abraham, in the Abrahamic story, for example, I mean, Abraham's an old guy, and he's basically lived in his mom's basement. That's really the beginning of the story. And he gets a call to adventure. You know, God says, well, get away from your family and your kin, get out there in the world. It's the call to adventure. Think, okay, fine, that's a heroic motif. But then Abraham goes out, and the first thing he encounters is like tyranny and starvation, and then a bunch of guys who want to steal his wife. So it's been entertaining to take those stories apart and to see why they're foundational, because they are foundational, and they're not mere ignorance. Whatever they are, ignorant superstition is not the right category.